You're watching Eyewitness, the Print's daily live feature covering the coronavirus pandemic. The Print's reporters are on the ground across the country in Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar, and right here in Delhi. I'm joined by Soniya Agrawal, who has been to several hospitals in Delhi this morning. You know that Delhi is the epicenter of this COVID pandemic. Soniya, tell me what you've seen. Where you're at home right now, I imagine, but you've been to some hospitals. Give me a sense of what's going on. But first of all, tell me what the situation is like in Delhi.
So, as we already know, that the situation here is pretty grave, and the number of COVID cases is touching a daily high. Yesterday, also, over 20,000 cases were recorded, more than 400 deaths, which is the highest that Delhi has seen so far.
Is it continuing to be 400 deaths, more than 400 deaths, Sonia? Because day before as well, it was more than 400.
Yeah, so this was the second time. Yeah, the second day in a row when Delhi has seen such a big number of deaths. And as far as vaccination is concerned, today is when you could say officially, formally, the drive for 18 plus citizens has started. And true to their age, the enthusiasm is very high amongst people to get vaccinated. People are flocking these centers, and to make the process smooth and easier, the Delhi government, the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal yesterday made an announcement saying that Delhi government schools will be used as vaccination centers. So 77 such centers have propped up in locations around the national capital, and we visited two of such centers today, and I would not be wrong if I said that the process is rather smooth. There are minor teething issues at some of the spots, which I think is manageable because the Delhi government, what I also observed is that the Delhi government has sent volunteers to every school, every vaccination site to check in with the school principals to ask them what are the problems they're facing, logistical issues that they would like the government to solve for them, like internet, water. So it seems like the government has really put on a strong front forward going ahead with this inoculation drive for 18 plus residents.
Right. So viewers, do send in your questions over the next 20-25 minutes. Sonia is here with us and she will answer each of your questions. But Sonia, tell me, which hospitals did you go to in Delhi? And if you can describe the situation like at these hospitals, were there long queues? Are there enough vaccines? Are people being vaccinated in large numbers?
So like I mentioned, these schools have been specially set up for 18 plus people, but the vaccination is also obviously happening in private hospitals as well. So there, I visited two private hospitals, one of which is called Spring Meadows. It's in South Delhi, where they have had to shut down their vaccination process drive. No reason was given to us, although the receptionist told me that on the 30th of the previous month, they were asked to, administer whatever people were coming in, the registered people, and then to return the leftover doses to the government.
So, one second, explain this to me, Sonia. This is the Spring Meadows Hospital in South Delhi, is that correct?
Yes.
So what exactly happened when what did the receptionist at the Spring Meadows tell you exactly?
So he told us, so this is one thing that Spring Meadows is still, showing up on the CoWIN app for the registration. And when we went there, we found that they've shut down their vaccination desk. So in fact, the vaccination officer was also not present in the hospital when we visited. So they had Covishield vaccine doses, which they administered to people who had registered there till the 30th of March.
30th of April.
Sorry. And after which they shut it down because they said they weren't given a reason, and even if they were, the person in charge was not very comfortable speaking about it. So they were asked to return whatever leftover doses they had, and it's been shut now.
So the hospital returned the vaccine doses that they had not used up by the 30th of April and returned it to the central government, the health ministry. Is that correct?
I'm assuming the Delhi government, because it comes under the Delhi government.
Sure.
Yeah.
But why is that? Do you know why that is?
We haven't been able to find out the reason for that. Also, it's a smaller hospital as compared to several other hospitals which are inoculating people right now. So possibly this could be one of the reasons why it was asked to shut down.
Okay. But Sonia, the first questions have started coming in. Rishabh Jain is asking, we are vaccinating 2 million people a day. I assume that he's talking about, obviously, figures across the country in the 18 to 45 age group. So this will basically take 1,000 days, which is about 3 years, to vaccinate everyone completely, right? He's asking you this question. Is that how long is it going to take to vaccinate every adult from 18 years upwards?
So, this is something which has been a hot topic of debate, the inoculation drive. How far is its reach, and how many people can it reach at one point in time? And with our current numbers, it might take years.
Yeah.
And so, for this, of course, there are several steps that not only governments, but researchers, public policy thinkers, and several such, people of repute have, put up several propositions, several ways going ahead. One of which is obviously what we as journalists can tell people is to go step ahead and get themselves vaccinated and not show any kind of hesitancy. But the other side to it is, which I think is a commendable step, even in the case of Delhi, is that, and this is something that, a very senior public health specialist wrote, is that, the if you ask me for a solution, I think this seems like a good solution, that you vaccinate people in places which are hotspots, in cities which are hotspots, so that the spread immediately, the positivity rate will immediately come down, because these people which can be potential spreaders, are inoculated and are
That,
immune.
that's a really important point, is that you vaccinate the hotspots and then gradually you vaccinate other places which are less needy. And right now, Delhi is a hotspot, not just Delhi, but the NCR, the National Capital Region. We've seen that, and you've been reporting on that. Lots of other questions, Sonia, coming in. One, there is a question from Shantanu Gautam, who's saying, when can vaccination start in the rest of the country? Shantanu, the vaccination drive has been launched across the country from the 1st of May. The question is whether there are enough vaccine doses for these states. And several states have complained that they don't have doses. In fact, as Sonia just told you, Delhi started its vaccination drive today when it should have started on the 1st of May. And as far as UP, so Shantanu is asking, the UP government has said that vaccination has started, but the CoWIN portal shows no appointments. And I think that's the problem, Shantanu, is that the rush is so huge, because we've seen that young people in this 18 to 45 age group are now, being exposed to the virus, and a lot of them are seriously affected. So I think that's the problem, is that there's so many people, but not enough vaccines. So the question to you, Sonia, is, and this is from Sanket Kulkarni, can the vaccine centers become COVID hotspots because of mismanagement?
Yes. So this is actually a concern that several people have raised. And it's also one of the reasons why a certain subset of people have flocked to private hospitals. The 18 in the 18 plus age group have flocked to private hospitals instead of coming to government facilities. They're afraid that the long queues outside government facility will become a super spreader event, and they will end up contracting the disease. And of course these centers are trying their best to make sure that the waiting time is not too much, so that there isn't a queue. But then logistical issues do come up, and these are not things that you predict. So of course these have the potential of turning into super spreader events. But the best thing that we can do from our side is mask up, wear two masks, do not talk to people,
Maintain
maintain
social distance.
basically maintain COVID hygiene when you go to a center, because there's only so many things that a center can do to help you, right? They are already burdened with more than 100 to 100 people turning up daily to get vaccinated. So there is something that we as citizens need to do as well to ensure that it does not become a super spreader.
In fact, that's a really good point, Sonia, because Kamalika Chaudhary has a similar question. She's saying, in spite of the vaccination, people need to adhere to COVID protocols. Absolutely, Kamalika. You need to mask up, you need to maintain social distance, and you need to keep washing your hands. Now, you can't wash your hands at a COVID at a COVID center, but surely you can when you go back home. But she's asking, is this being explained at the vaccination centers, these COVID protocols?
No, this is not being explained at the COVID centers, the inoculation centers, but here's what the centers are trying to do from their side. There's always a team of volunteers. This is something that I've been told, and it may vary from center to center, but somebody who went to West Delhi to get themselves inoculated told me that there were volunteers talking to people and asking them how they were feeling when they were sitting in the observation area, asking them to continue wearing their masks, etc. And then there's police force which has been deployed at every center. So there are 3 to 4 police personnel outside the center waiting with
What?
people.
For what are the police there?
To maintain calm and peacefulness, and that people are adhering to the rules and standing in queue with social distance. So basically, to maintain order in these centers so that fights don't break out, because it's hot and people are waiting in queues. It's understandable to get irritable. So they are maintaining calm in such situations. So
Yeah,
that.
there are 2 or 3 questions which are not directly related to Delhi, and I'm going to try and answer them. Vivek Kumar is asking, ma'am, why is the center not considering compulsory licensing for COVID drugs like remdesivir, tocilizumab? And he wants to know why the Patents Act of 1970 is not being amended. Then Erin D'Souza wants to know, has anything substantial come out of the meeting that Prime Minister Modi had with the scientists? And Mohit Paramarsh Singh is asking, still no 18 plus, meaning still no vaccines for 18 plus people in various centers, and why is that? So to you, Erin and Erin D'Souza, and to Vivek Kumar, I think if you read the Print's website, we have several of our reporters, Abantika Ghosh, Himani, Channa, Sonia herself, and we have a very big COVID team which has been tracking the pandemic since last March. So you will find at least some of the information there. And if you don't find it, please do write in and we will definitely address this to you. As you know, that this COVID live feature on video is every evening at 5 o'clock. So if you don't get your answers, please do log in tomorrow and we will help you address those questions. Now, I think the question by Mohit Paramarsh Sang is saying, is that why there are no 18 plus vaccines for 18 plus in various centers? The plain and simple answer is that there are not enough vaccines, and that people are still being, that while it's theoretically open, but vaccines are not being sent to states. But there is, I think there is a silver lining. Vaccines are being imported. For example, the Sputnik 5 from Russia has come into Hyderabad. So slowly, I think some vaccines will come in. Sonia, a question to you from Tarush. He's saying, this is about the COVID app. And he's saying, why is the vaccine name not written on the COVID app? That's a good question, because you have 2 kinds of vaccines, right? Covaxin, which is the indigenous vaccine made by Bharat Biotech, as well as Covishield, which is AstraZeneca vaccine, the Swedish Oxford, the Swedish UK vaccine. But why is it that the vaccine name, so you don't know when you go to this vaccine center what vaccine you're getting, right?
Yeah, so this is something that has been a problem with this app, that people, in fact, from the beginning of the inoculation drive, people cannot make a choice between what vaccine they're getting. And such is the, process of bringing in vaccines to the centers, that even centers upon, receipt of vaccines get to know what doses they have received, whether it's Covishield or Covaxin. So there is, I think the message here is to get yourself vaccinated and not focus on who's what vaccine it is or who is it coming from. Because as per scientific experts and the information that they've provided to us, both the vaccines are equally effective, one a little less maybe than the other, but both of them have shown good results when it comes to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So the I think the main objective here is to get yourself vaccinated and not, play favorites and end up losing the vaccine instead.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good point. And I hope all of you who are watching and listening to Soniya, please get yourselves vaccinated. It doesn't matter whether it's the Covishield or the Covaxin. And Soniya, who was at the hospitals that she mentioned. So earlier it was that private hospitals were giving Covishield and government hospitals were giving Covaxin. But right now it doesn't matter. And it's not necessarily true anymore. So get the vaccine that you are getting. Both vaccines are really good. And so Soniya, tell me, again, the questions, there's several questions that are coming for you. K. Sudarshan Reddy, why are there no slots to book in this 18 plus age bracket? Why?
Yeah, so this is a problem that, in fact, even I was facing since the 1st of May. A lot of people in Delhi will have had faced this problem of not being able to get a slot. So here is what is happening. As soon as hospitals are getting vaccines, they're opening up slots. Last night, um, as soon as these centers, these schools started getting vaccines, the stocks started coming in. These opened up as centers. So several people who did not have a slot before last evening, say, managed to get a slot for today morning, when these slots opened up. So my request is keep trying
Yeah,
to find a slot, because as we know, the vaccines are not enough as compared to the population of the country. So there is a chance that you might not find a slot. So it is of importance to keep trying to find a slot,
right.
because at the end of the day, there might be a chance where you end up finding a slot or a place to get yourself vaccinated.
Right. Now, somebody called Slippery Slytherin wants to know, ma'am, is there any facility of refreshment at the vaccination centers to curb the heat? Now, Slippery Slytherin, I know you're clearly a Harry Potter fan. So perhaps you should go back to rereading all the Harry Potter books that you've been reading, because let me tell you, whether there or not there is refreshment, I think there is probably water available, but carry your own water bottle. You do not want to touch anything that you don't need to touch. So carry your water bottle, carry a sandwich if you need to wait, carry a hat. I'm sure there's lots of shade at any of the centers. But Slippery Slytherin, that's a good question. So, carry a Harry Potter book when you go stand in a queue, but go and stand in a queue at the vaccine center. If you've registered on the CoWIN portal and your name shows up, just go. Carry 2 books if you like. But so more questions. Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
I would like to add that if you are going to a vaccination center, and if you have to wait, I would suggest that you not remove your mask. So, drink enough water, feed yourself, because you will need to have an empty stomach, a full stomach rather, when you get the vaccine. So it's advisable that you, drink enough water and eat enough food before you leave for the vaccination center, because as somebody also asked that these places can be potential super spreaders. So to stop the spread, to not become a victim or a perpetrator, do not remove your
Keep
mask.
your immunity up, basically. Don't remove any of your mask. Don't drink anywhere else. Just go on the side if you're feeling really thirsty. Abhishek Banerjee has a question for you, Sonia. He's saying there has been a sharp drop in testing these last few days. Could that be responsible for, we've seen in Maharashtra, for example, that there is perhaps the flattening of the curve? We don't know for sure. It's recent. But what do you think, Sonia? Do you think that there is a correlation between, seeming projections that the infection is, that the curve may be flattening, to the fact that perhaps testing has come down?
So of course the positivity rate has reduced in Delhi. Yesterday we saw a drop in it, but then again, as you rightly said, Jyoti, that the number of tests has also reduced. So we cannot call it a an equal and fair parameter of keeping a check on the number of cases. This is something that all governments, various state governments in the country have done to reduce their positivity rate. The Uttar Pradesh government a few weeks back did something similar. They reduced the number of tests, they put a cap on it. Something similar was seen in Gujarat. So it's not the best parameter, especially when the number of tests reduce, because then it's basically showing you restricted numbers.
I think the answer to that is that whether or not there is a drop in infections, and right now we don't know whether it's correlated to the reduction in testing.
So,
Positivity rate is really high. So keep your masks on. Do not touch anything. First of all, stay inside, but only when you need to get out, it's to go to a vaccine center. Sonia, another question from Tarush. He wants to know, will the Pfizer vaccine, the US Pfizer vaccine, be available in Delhi? Right now, it's not available, Sonia. We know that. Right now, it's only the AstraZeneca, the Covishield that's manufactured in Pune by the Serum Institute of India. We know that the Indian government has given permission to import various vaccines like Sputnik 5. But what about Pfizer, the US vaccine? Is it going to be available? Do you know anything about permissions for Pfizer?
So, as of now, from centers that I could gather, that there is no scope of the Pfizer vaccine coming in as of now. And of course, whatever talks happen between the Indian and US government, uh, that I think Nayanama Basu and yourself might be the best to track and explain to us.
No, well, I think on the Pfizer vaccine, the reason that the Indian government, at least early on, a few months ago, did not give permission for the Pfizer vaccine was a very simple one. The vaccine only works when it's kept at a very, very low temperature, minus 70 to minus 80 degrees centigrade. Now, in a country like ours, where cold chains are fewer and far between, we don't know yet whether Pfizer and the Indian government have any arrangement right now, but we will watch this space and we will watch this question for you. And we will surely let you know if anything shows up. So Anubhav is asking, Raghav Bakshi, before that, Sonia, and let me do, because there's lots of questions, let me club a couple of questions for you. Anubhav wants to know, is the double mask effective?
Yes. Several doctors have taken to social media to, bring this out amongst people that double masking is the need of the hour. We know the virus is mutating, it's getting stronger, more virulent. It's really affecting people in a very grave and I would say unpredictable manner. Lungs of people are collapsing. Hypoxia is setting in without even people feeling or realizing that their blood oxygen saturation level has dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So, to prevent all of these from happening, double masking is effective. Wear a cloth mask or a surgical mask and an N95 on top of it. It statistically reduces the risk of spread of the infection.
Yeah. Keshav Gupta is saying, Sonia, I'm 18 years old. I have got myself vaccinated at Kashmiri Gate, but there were slots for 1,500 people were booked, meaning they booked slots for 1,500 people, but there were only 150 vaccines. And he says it was a logistical nightmare. What are your views?
So every center, like every school, has 4 or 5 centers, 4 or 5 rooms where the vaccine is being administered. So if this school in Kashmiri Gate had only one center and they've taken up registrations of 1,500 people, then it definitely is going to be a difficult situation for the center to deal with, the school to deal with, because that many people turning up asking for vaccines when you only have a percent of what the registration number was, then of course they will vaccinate the first 150 people who come in, but then the rest is going to be a logistical nightmare. It's going to turn up in the report that the centers will prepare
Yeah, and
today.
obviously there are not enough vaccines for those 1,500 people. So it just shows that people do want to be vaccinated, but they will have to wait their time, unfortunately. And Anubhav has actually asked the same guy who asked you about the double mask. He has several questions for you, Anubhav, but I'm just going to quickly say, one is that does the shortage of raw material effectively prevent the production of the vaccine? And the answer to that is no, there is no shortage right now, although there have been some reports in the newspapers about the Serum Institute asking the US to lift their ban on raw materials, but actually that was not for the not for the Covishield that he's producing for the Indian market, but for another vaccine called the Covovax, which he produces, which he manufactures, that is Adar Poonawalla manufactures for a UN program. So don't worry, there is no shortage of raw material. It's just that the vaccines are not being produced in the numbers that they should be. And that's both for the Adar Poonawalla Institute as well as for the Bharat Biotech. Okay, Jaspreet Singh, ma'am, what about the Moderna vaccine? Same answer as to the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna is also a US vaccine, and we don't have an agreement right now. Dikshit Tyagi, what should be on top? Soniya, that's a very good question. Should the surgical mask be on top, or should the cloth mask be on top?
So by the surgical mask, I mean the blue colored mask that you get. So it's a special type of fabric which is made specially for doctors, and it's preferable that you wear on your face first, and on top of that you wear the N95, because the surgical mask reduces the chance of spreading the the bacteria or virus from your body by about 70%, and the rest of the work you can rely on an N95 to do.
But if you have a cotton mask, I think his question is, should you wear the surgical mask first and then the cotton mask on top? I think that's the way it should be done, right? So yes, Go ahead and wear your the blue mask or white mask, or it comes in different colors now. So that should be worn first across your mouth and then a cotton mask. But as Soniya is saying, now because the things are not so good, you should try and wear an N95. If you don't have an N95, then wear 2 surgical masks. Okay, so Raghav Bakshi has a good question, and I think we are running out of time, so the last couple of questions. Raghav Bakshi is asking you, Soniya, is it possible that by the time we reach a 50% vaccinated population, that the first group of people who got vaccinated, older people like myself, for example, would have or could have lost or could lose their immunity?
So this is another thing which has obviously become a hot topic of discussion. Yeah. And the vaccine, as of now, from what we know, provides immunity for up to 1 year and a little more. So this, for now, I believe that as long as we're able to put a cap on the spread of the infection that is spreading that is ongoing right now, and even if you talk to doctors, they will encourage you to get vaccinated and say even getting the first dose offers you some kind of immunity. So with that in mind, and this is another thing that is, if you look at the data, that the number of people that states have inoculated, because of vaccine shortage, a large number of people have been given the first dose. It's the second dose that's missing, that's not reached these people. So at least that one step we have taken forward, at least like in Maharashtra, say, for example, there's a larger number, almost twice the number of people who've received the first dose of the vaccine, but there is a large chunk of people waiting for their second dose. So this is still a step in the first direction. Yeah. And this is also why the waiting period has been increased to 6 to 8 weeks, so that not only is vaccine available for everybody, but the dosage is timed in such a manner that it has the maximum amount of impact and protection.
And let me add to that. I think let me add to what you're saying, Soniya. Yes, I think 6 months or 1 year down the line, we will perhaps need a booster dose, especially older people like me, because the way the virus is mutating, we don't really know. This is a new virus, the SARS-CoV-2. And, first of all, the fact that companies have manufactured a vaccine in such short time is itself testament to the fact that scientists have been working really hard and round the clock. But the manner in which the virus is mutating, we could need a booster dose a few months down the line, but right now we don't have any real information. Absolutely, the last couple of questions. Why can't other pharma companies like Ranbaxy, Sun Pharma, and others be used to manufacture the vaccine to reduce the shortage?
So this is something that came up in the Delhi High Court yesterday as well, in the hearing that was happening, and the lawyers have asked the government to, make it available to other pharmaceutical companies so that they can start manufacturing and make the vaccine produced in such a big way that it is available to a larger population.
But I think that's this may be a direction by the Delhi High Court, but let's look at the science. It's not easy to manufacture a vaccine. And that's why one of the reasons why the Covaxin, which is manufactured by an Indian company called Bharat Biotech in Hyderabad, the reason the numbers are being delayed, the reason it's not been able to manufacture as many vaccines as it promised, it's because it's not easy. You need trials, you need thousands of people to undertake trials, 20,000 people at a time. Then you need gaps between those trials. So because there's something that's going into your body that is hopefully going to produce the antibodies to fight this virus that is coming in from the outside, it has to be foolproof. And that's why it's not easy. So last question to you, Soniya from Vikram Singh, is one, yeah,
Can
go
I?
ahead.
Of
Yes,
course.
yes.
So this vaccine, of course, the stage of trials is done and dusted with. We have a finished product which just needs mass production. The problem is, as we know, a dead virus is put into this vaccine. So and that is what is injected into our body. So here's where the problem lies. So in NIV Pune, where we visited last year, it takes a BSL level 4 lab to manufacture this vaccine where the research was happening. And that's a biosafety level 4 lab, and that's where the virus is handled. So, very trained and well versed with their work kind of experts go in and deal with the virus. Such people are kept in special facilities so that there's no chance of spreading of the infection from them if they happen to get it. And the BSL-3 lab is where viruses like influenza and other milder viruses are dealt with. So it also requires special facilities which pharmaceutical companies may not have access to. So, which is why this is a logistical, uh, you know, uh, tidbit that pharmaceutical companies and the government will have to be very mindful and careful about before even letting out others to produce this vaccine.
Okay, so two last questions for you, Soniya, both relating to masks. Vikram Singh is asking, is one N95 mask enough, especially if it fits well? So he's obviously thought about this. So is one mask enough, one N95 mask enough? And the other is, are surgical masks reusable? Because he has seen many people who wash the surgical mask and use it again. Is that safe?
So if you I would suggest that you double mask. If you are confident that your N95 is sealed well, uh, there's no chance of any mishaps, then please go ahead. But I would still suggest that you double mask. And if you're wearing a single N95 mask, then be careful about your hands. Do not touch your face or remove the mask even for a breather. Just go through whatever activity you're doing and then come back home and then sanitize yourself. And as far as the question of surgical masks goes, no, a surgical mask is not reusable. The blue colored or the green
Right.
colored or the white colored mask, it is built to last only for 8 hours. And once you wash it, it's no longer of this. So it's made out of non-woven fabric. And once you wash it, the fabric loses its quality. So it's best if you, the reason why we're worrying about the problem of waste and uh, biomedical waste becoming a big problem is these masks are not reusable. They might seem biodegradable, but obviously it's going to happen in the long run. So it's a burden. But yes, it lasts only for 8 hours. Do not wash and wear it again. It's not advisable and it lasts only for 8 hours.
Right. So thank you, viewers, for all your questions. We've had a lot today, and you've heard Soniya answering as many as she could. Those of you who haven't got your questions answered, please do log into the Print's website, theprint.in. It's ThePrint, which is one word, .in. Log in, read the stories that the COVID team has been putting out on a daily basis. They're right on the website. We have several stories, so please do read those. If you still have questions, then log on every evening for our COVID live feature. We have one or another reporter across the country that will answer your questions on the COVID pandemic. Thank you so much for watching. And Soniya, thank you so much for answering all your questions and for your time. Thank you again. This is Eyewitness, and you're watching.